The dinner table sat silent, a tension so thick you could cut it with a knife. The kids, oblivious as always, continued shoveling down their food without a care in the world. I couldn't blame them. My famous lasagna was a family favorite. Bennett cleared his throat, drawing my gaze away from the kids. This is, He paused, grimacing as he swallowed another bite. Well, it's certainly interesting. My heart sank. After slaving away in the kitchen all afternoon, that was the reaction I got? What's wrong with it? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He waved his fork dismissively. Nothing. It's just a bit drier than usual, don't you think? The words stung like a slap to the face. Drier than usual? I had followed my grandmother's recipe to the letter, just like I always did, unless, no, it couldn't be. Was he purposely trying to hurt me? Well, I think it's delicious, I said firmly, forcing a smile at the kids. They grinned back at me through cheese-stained lips. Bennett simply shrugged and continued eating in silence. My appetite had vanished. What was going on with him lately? The snide remarks, the cold shoulder, it was becoming a regular occurrence. Had I done something to upset him? Unbidden, a thought bubbled up from the back of my mind. Was he seeing someone else? No, that was ridiculous. We'd been married 7 years, had 2 wonderful children together. Bennett wasn't the cheating type. Was he? I spent the rest of the meal picking at my food, my mind a whirlwind of confusion and doubt. By the time Bennett finally pushed away his half-eaten plate, I had made up my mind. One way or another, I was going to get to the bottom of this. Over the next few weeks, I kept a close eye on Bennett's behavior. The more I observed, the more my suspicions grew. Late nights at the office became the norm rather than the exception. Whenever I asked about his work, he gave vague, one-word answers before burying his nose in his phone. Speaking of phones, that thing practically became an extension of his hand. He was constantly tapping away, a small smirk playing on his lips whenever a new notification dinged. One night, after the kids were tucked into bed, I decided to take a look for myself. I know, it was a total invasion of privacy, but I had to know the truth. I tiptoed into the home office where Bennett spent most of his evenings these days and booted up his computer. A few clicks later and I had full access to his email accounts, calendar, everything. That's when I saw it. A recurring calendar event titled Project Nighthawk. What kind of idiotic code name was that? My heart pounding, I dug deeper into his emails. The earliest mention of Project Nighthawk dated back 6 months. That's when it finally hit me. This had been going on for half a year, right under my nose. I wanted to scream, to confront him right then and there. But I forced myself to take a few deep breaths. No, getting angry wouldn't solve anything. I needed more concrete evidence, something undeniable. That's when I remembered Monica mentioning a private investigator her firm sometimes used for corporate cases. A light bulb went off in my head. If I hired him, maybe I could catch Bennett in the act. Then he'd have no choice but to come clean. With shaking hands, I copied down the investigator's number, my mind already racing with the dramatic confrontation I would orchestrate. Bennett's world was about to come crashing down. And this time, I wouldn't be the one hiding in the shadows. He was the one who had lied and betrayed the sanctity of our marriage vows. It was his turn to feel the shame, the humiliation. I was done being the victim. The old Adrian was dead and buried. This new me? She was a force to be reckoned with. I barely slept a wink that night, my mind racing with theories about what Bennett was really up to. When morning finally came, I dragged myself out of bed and headed straight for the one person I knew I could trust, my best friend Monica. Monica took one look at my haggard appearance and immediately ushered me inside, throwing a bathrobe over her pajamas. Geez, Adri, you look like hell. What's going on? I opened my mouth, but the words caught in my throat. How was I supposed to explain this nightmare to her? Taking a deep breath, I finally managed to choke out, I think Bennett is cheating on me. Monica's eyes widened in shock. What? No, there's got to be some mistake. Bennett worships the ground you walk on. I shook my head warily. I wish that were true, but I found some suspicious stuff on his computer. Coded calendar events, emails referencing some dumb project name. Sinking down onto the couch, I buried my face in my hands. I feel like such an idiot, Monica. How could I have let this happen right under my nose? Suddenly, I felt her arms wrap around me in a tight embrace. "Don't you dare blame yourself for that bastard's actions," she said fiercely. "The only one at fault here is Bennett." Pulling away, she fixed me with a determined look. "Okay, here's what we're gonna do. I know this kick-ass private investigator my company uses all the time. If anyone can get to the bottom of what's really going on, it's him." A spark of hope flickered in my chest. "You really think he can find proof?" "Oh, I don't think. I know," Monica said with a wry grin. "This guy's like a freaking bloodhound. He'll sniff out whatever slimeball Bennett's working with and get you the evidence you need." I hesitated, sudden doubts swirling in my mind. What if the investigator didn't find anything? Or worse, what if he uncovered something I wasn't prepared for? Monica must have sensed my trepidation because she grabbed my hands, giving them a fierce squeeze. "Adri, you have to be strong, okay? Don't let that piece of garbage continue making a fool out of you. It's time to take your life back." Her words lit a fire inside me. She was right. I couldn't keep burying my head in the sand any longer. I was done being weak, done letting Bennett control the narrative. With a resolute nod, I squared my shoulders. "You're right. Do it. Hire the investigator. It's time I finally learned the truth." A few days later, Monica called me over to her place again. This time her expression was grim. "Adri, you'd better sit down for this." My heart pounding, I lowered myself onto the couch, bracing for whatever bombshell she was about to drop. Monica gestured to a large manila envelope on the coffee table. "This is everything the PI dug up on Bennett's activities." With trembling hands, I reached for the envelope and pulled out the stack of papers inside. Page after page of damning evidence assaulted my eyes. Photos of Bennett leaving sleazy motels, receipts from expensive restaurants, even a detailed log of his comings and goings. But it was the last photo that made my blood run cold. There was my husband, lips locked in a passionate embrace with a leggy blonde I recognized from his office. Elise, her name was. I think I was going to be sick. That's his coworker," I stammered, the pieces finally clicking into place. "Oh my God, Monica! How could he do this to me, to our family?" Monica put a comforting arm around my shoulders as the tears started flowing freely. "I'm so sorry, sweetie, but listen to me. You did nothing to deserve this, you hear me? This is 100% on that scumbag Bennett." Furiously wiping at my eyes, I nodded, a new sense of determination rising within me. Monica was right. Wallowing in self-pity would only give Bennett more power over me. It was time to stop being the victim. "You know what? I'm not going to just roll over and take this," I said, my voice hardening. "He wants to go sniffing around like some kind of rutting dog? Fine, but he's not going to be able to hide from the consequences." Monica's eyes widened at the venom in my tone, but she quickly broke into a proud grin. "Atta girl! So what's the plan? You going to take that bastard to the cleaners in court?" I shook my head slowly, a wicked smile spreading across my face. "No, I've got something else in mind. Something that will really hit him where it hurts, his oversized ego." Picking up the photo of Bennett and his blonde mistress, I fixed their smirking faces with a steely glare. "You wanted to make a show of disrespecting me? Fine. I'll give you a show you'll never forget." The wheels were spinning in my head as I pored over the private investigator's findings. Bennett's birthday was coming up in a few weeks, a big bash that both our families always attended. The more I thought about it, the more it seemed like the perfect opportunity to expose his betrayal. I could just imagine the smug look on his face as he blew out the candles, surrounded by our loved ones, utterly clueless to his deceit. Well, not for much longer. I was going to make sure that this year there was one present he'd never forget. "You're really going to go through with this, huh?" Monica eyed me warily over her wineglass. I met her gaze, my jaw set in determination. "You're damn right I am. Bennett wants to act like the victim, like I'm some shrill, nagging wife who drove him into the arms of another woman. It's time he learned exactly what a victim looks like." Monica let out a low whistle. "Adri, I gotta be honest, you're starting to scare me a little here. You sure you want to go nuclear like this? What about the kids?" A pang of guilt shot through me at the mention of my babies. Of course, I had thought about how this could impact them. But the more I turned it over in my mind, the more I realized nothing could possibly scar them more than growing up in a house filled with lies and resentment. Better to make a clean break now than perpetuate the charade of our perfect family. The kids will be fine, I said firmly. They're strong, resilient, and most importantly, they'll know that their mom refused to just lie down and take it, that she stood up for herself and her dignity. Monica regarded me carefully, then finally cracked a small smile. You're one tough lady, Adrienne Taylor. All right, I'm in. What's the plan? A slow, wicked grin spread across my face as I pulled out the guest list for Bennett's party. Over 100 people, including his smarmy colleagues and Elise herself. Here's what we're going to do. The big day had finally arrived. Bennett's 37th birthday party was in full swing, our family room overflowing with guests, laughing and mingling over drinks and hors d'oeuvres. I watched from the kitchen as Bennett made his rounds, that signature charming smile plastered across his face. My stomach turned at the sight. How many of these people had any idea who they were really celebrating? The doting husband, the devoted father, it was all a sham, a meticulously crafted facade. Well, not for much longer. You sure you want to go through with this? I turned to see Monica eyeing me with concern. She had stuck by my side through every step of planning this grand spectacle, but even she seemed to be having second thoughts now. Squaring my shoulders, I gave her a resolute nod. I'm sure. He brought this on himself. Monica sighed heavily but said nothing more. We both knew there was no turning back at this point. All the pieces were in place. I had just been waiting for the right moment to execute my master plan. That moment came when Bennett's sleazy law partner, Marcus, clinked his glass, calling for silence. All right, everyone, let's bring out the cake so the big man can make a wish. A hush fell over the crowd as two of Bennett's grossly underpaid paralegals wheeled out a massive 3-tiered cake dripping with enough buttercream to send a diabetic into a coma. I rolled my eyes. Of course, Bennett would insist on going ridiculously over the top. As the partygoers burst into an off-key chorus of "Happy Birthday," Bennett stood front and center, beaming from ear to ear like he was the only person in the room. God, I could hardly stand to look at that smug expression. Finally, the singing trailed off, and Marcus held the lighter out towards the candles with a theatrical flourish. Okay, Bennett, make it a good one. Bennett opened his mouth, no doubt preparing some inane wish about winning another high-profile case or landing a promotion. But before he could utter a word, I stepped forward, my heart thundering in my chest. Actually, before we let Bennett blow out those candles, I'd like to make a toast. A hush fell over the crowd as all eyes turned towards me. Bennett shot me a quizzical look, but I ignored him, focusing instead on the crystal flute trembling in my grip. I'd like to begin by thanking everyone for being here today to celebrate my husband, Bennett. I paused, letting the sarcasm drip from those last two words. He really is one hell of a guy, isn't he? A few uneasy chuckles rippled through the guests. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught sight of Bennett's mother frowning in disapproval. Good, let the fireworks start. A devoted father, a diligent worker, a wonderful partner. I couldn't keep the bitterness out of my tone as I continued. At least, that's what he wants all of you to think, isn't it, dear? Bennett's jaw tightened, but he remained silent, perhaps still deluding himself that I was just engaging in some harmless party banter. How naive. But I'm afraid the truth is far less rosy. You see, while Bennett has been working those long hours at the office, building his reputation as a hotshot lawyer. I trailed off, letting the accusation hang in the air. Suddenly, a strangled gasp cut through the tension. All heads swiveled to see a panicked-looking Elise, her face drained of color, clutching a drink like a lifeline. He's been carrying on an affair with his co-worker, Elise. A collective intake of breath, quickly followed by a symphony of furious whispers and murmurs. I drank in the chaos, a heavy silence falling over me as I reached into my pocket and withdrew the crumpled pile of incriminating photos. For those of you who don't believe me, here's all the proof you need. With a smooth flick of my wrist, I sent the photos raining down in a cascade of glossy sleaze. Bennett sneaking out of motels, Bennett embracing Elise in the front seat of his sedan, Bennett's hands roaming over her body as they devoured each other's mouths. The screams and gasps of shock were like a balm to my wounded soul. I stood motionless, letting the explosive fallout of Bennett's lies detonate around me as his friends, family, colleagues, everyone he had so carefully deceived, watched the ugly truth unfurl. "Well," I raised my voice over the pandemonium, pinning Bennett with a look of pure, unrestrained loathing. "What do you have to say for yourself, dear husband?" For a long moment, he could only gape at me, rendered speechless in the wake of his carefully constructed world crumbling to pieces. Then finally, his face contorted into an ugly snarl as he found his voice. You crazy bitch! How could you do this to me? To us?" A harsh bark of laughter escaped my lips. "Oh, I'm the crazy one? I'm not the degenerate piece of filth cheating on his wife." The fallout from Bennett's grand betrayal was swift and merciless. Within days, the video of our explosive confrontation had gone viral, replayed endlessly on news channels and talk shows alike. Overnight, he became the poster boy for infidelity, a cautionary tale of how the lies of one man could detonate an entire life. As for me, I tried to take the high road as much as possible. While the media clamored for salacious details, I refused to pour more fuel on the fire, keeping my responses brief and dignified. My only focus was protecting my children and ensuring this didn't become even more traumatic for them. Of course, that didn't stop Bennett's family from weighing in with their own vitriol. His mother was utterly beside herself, alternating between blistering condemnation of my classless stunt and pleading for me to take her son back. Yeah, like that was going to happen. Even his colleagues and law partners couldn't resist weighing in, with many of them entirely unsurprised by the revelations. Apparently, Bennett's philandering was something of an open secret at the firm, yet another lie he had carefully maintained with me. The only upside? The ironclad prenup I had insisted on before we married, much to Bennett's chagrin at the time. He had fought me tooth and nail on it, but my steadfast refusal to budge ended up being the best decision I ever made. When the dust finally settled, the judge awarded me full custody of our children, as well as the house and a considerable sum in assets. More importantly, I was finally free of Bennett's toxic web of deception. Forever. As for Bennett himself, well, let's just say karma caught up to him in ways I could never have predicted. His once promising career went up in flames, with high-profile case after high-profile case slipping through his fingers as the scandal continued dominating headlines. By the end of it all, he had been forced into an embarrassing resignation, his professional reputation left in utter tatters. Through it all, I never spoke a single word to him, never allowed him the chance to plead his case or make amends. Some might call that harsh, but I knew any attempt at reconciliation would have just been another deception, another trap to lure me back into his cycle of abuse and betrayal. No, this was the path I had chosen. A fresh start, free from Bennett's toxic influence. A chance to live authentically, to pursue the dreams I had set aside for the sake of that sham of a marriage. That's why, on the 1-year anniversary of that fateful birthday party, I shocked everyone by opening a bakery. A true labor of love, specializing in the kind of quality baked goods Bennett had always turned his nose up at in favor of fancy, overpriced fare. With a supportive crew, including Monica, who had stuck by me every step of the way, and the funds from my divorce settlement, I built that little bakery from the ground up. And you know what? It brought me more pride, more joy than anything I had achieved during my marriage. For the first time in years, I was beholden to no one but myself. My life, my future, finally belonged to me again. Sure, the gossip rags tried to stir up drama about the scorned wife's revenge bakery, or whatever stupid moniker they dreamed up. But I just smiled serenely and baked on, content in the knowledge that I had reclaimed my power. Bennett was ancient history, and I had never tasted anything quite so sweet as my newfound independence.